2. Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We are into the second week of a playoff run of Festivus for the rest of us, headed off to Buffalo. All of our sponsors are all involved in Ravens, and we all have this gene in us and this madness of memories of old Titan matchups and now dancing on logos. Todd Schuler joins us now from Blondell Miller Schuler in Essex, and our great friends down at Eastern Avenue at damngoodlawyer.com. They do lawyerly things there. If you're in an auto accident, workers' compensation, those type of things. But more than that, Todd was a one-time delegate and involved in elections. So, Todd, I almost feel like sort of silly just talking football with you. We're going to do a little football, but I do want to go into your observations on Wednesday and the last week. First things first. This is why we're fans, right? Like, this is when it gets really, really good, when we're up late on a Saturday night and we're rooting. We're not even sure if we're rooting against Pittsburgh or for the Cleveland. We don't even know. But this has been a unique time, I think, for all of us with the Ravens, that Lamar's finally won, and it feels like we can go win a Super Bowl, but it doesn't feel like we can have a parade.
Dude, we got the monkey off the back, right? Lamar has got the playoff win. That's what we were wanting. I told you many months ago, my birthday is next week, and all I wanted for my birthday was a vaccine, a new president, and Lamar's first playoff win.
Well, you're one for three.
All those boxes are checked. Nah, the vaccine's out. I don't need to get it yet. We just got to get my mother the vaccine, like we got to start getting people. I've seen online, I saw a friend, I don't know if it's anecdotal, he's a state delegate, but he's in his 70s, and I think he got the vaccine not as a healthcare professional, but as a, Group 1B person. I got to look in and see if.
Well, Florida's doing that right now. Everybody over 65, Florida's lining up. I saw it literally when I was getting my coffee before I came in. This is my Rofo on the news. I saw that they're doing that today in Florida. So it's been a cluster. The whole country's been a cluster. But I guess the point would be, for a guy like you that's dealt in government, law, every day somebody comes in there in some hurting circumstance coming to you as a lawyer saying, help me, I need representation, right, of some kind. That's all you've done is represent people. That this is a nice little diversion to have a Saturday night football game in the midst of whatever the hell the next 10 days is going to be in this country. I hope we have a game on Saturday, and I still think we're sanctioning games in this country. I
mean, we were talking in June about the folly that the NFL would crown a champion, right? We were scoffing at the notion that they could complete this season. And now not only are we down to the last couple of weeks, but the Ravens are in it. And I love it. I think it's fantastic. So are the Browns. My wife and my son are Cleveland Browns fans.
No, well, I know that, but the audience might not know that. And I mean, we can go into how did that happen? Can I just ask?
Well, my wife's from Cleveland. So,
where did you meet her?
I met her in Alabama, where you meet all Cleveland girls.
Okay, fair enough.
Now,
that makes sense. That's it.
We met in college. We both went to school at Spring Hill College in Mobile, Alabama. But yeah, so I have a Cleveland wife. Watching the playoffs through their eyes, I mean, again, this is kind of old hat for us. We've had the embarrassment of riches. We've had the good fortune of mostly being in the playoffs. Although I did find out yesterday we hadn't won a playoff game since the Super Bowl. Is that possible? But
no, we won a game before we beat the Steelers, and then we went to New England and lost, remember?
Oh. When? After the Super Bowl?
15? Yeah, 14, right, 15. Right. Who goes through that?
It blurs because we've had the good fortune of being there. These guys have no idea what to do with themselves. They don't know whether to, there's an expression there, but they have no concept of how you're supposed to be in the playoffs, and they're thrilled to death. They're excited to have a game next week. I'm excited to have a game next week. I think it's fantastic. So I'm loving me some football right now. I love Lamar, dude. We're down. Are we down 10-0 when he clips off? I think we're down 10-3, 3rd and 9. And then, right?
He was pounding the ground before that. And when I see the pound, the frustration, when he says, I get ticked off, I don't know what happens when he gets ticked off. I'm going to ask him about it this week. When you get ticked off, right? Is it like the Incredible Hulk? Do you go into something? Or, ticked off hasn't been really good for Phillip Rivers in my experience. You know what I mean? And ticked off was never Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco was never ticked off, right? Joe Flacco was the same all the time, because that's the way, and Joe and I had a lot of conversations about this, which is when I would sit and talk to him like about Mike Messina, I always compared the two of them because I knew them both pretty well, that they were like almost similar personalities in that unflappable, just unflappable. You never knew whether they were happy or sad or upset. They looked the same when they gave up a home run as they did when they struck out the side. You know what I mean? They just – and I love that. My dad sort of liked athletes like that. My dad liked Ted Williams and liked, you know, the not hot dog kind of guys. But you know, we're still in a place where I don't even know who these guys are, right? Like Lamar walked off the field because he felt so disrespected by them dancing on the logo, and the Ravens defense went and slid. I mean, there's a whole different swagger that I think Sunday showed about the team than maybe we'd seen before.
Yeah, I mean, they're building an identity. I think you're right. Lamar's 24 years old, right? So we don't really know who he is.
We knew what Ray Lewis was. We knew what Joe Flacco was. We know what John Harbaugh
knows what Ray Lewis is. You know, like, but Lamar, from a physical standpoint, not only is he quick enough, going back to that 3rd and 9, quick enough to make the people that have to miss, but then he's gone. I mean, he's the fastest guy out there once he's out in open space, right? He's running past the linebackers, running past the cornerbacks and safeties. I mean, he's just wheels. To have the combination of that quickness and that speed, he's the most dangerous weapon in football, is he not? Do you not know that we have a chance if he's playing?
Well, we have a chance. I think there's no doubt about that. We watched Buffalo play over the weekend. Kansas City sitting home, sunning themselves. I want to go back more to this Browns thing. Give me a little more volume if you have that on your end. The Browns fan thing for your wife, I've got more. I started thinking about this. Do I have more Browns fans in my life or more Steelers fans in my life? And the Browns fans in my life are so miserable. They've been in my life so long that I guess – they were excited about LeBron. Some of them are Indians fans. Most of them are Indians fans, quite frankly, because they're of my age. But a happy Browns, I've never seen them gloat because they've never had anything to gloat about. So what was that like at 11? What was that like when it was 28-0? I want to ask that.
It was ecstatic. I mean, I'm on the text circles with the whole family. They're going bananas, you know. I mean, fortunately for us, the horse was in the barn, right? So we're free to, like you say, we can root for him, root against him, do whatever the hell you want. But yeah, they were absolutely thrilled. They're texting each other again this morning in the big family group text. But you're right. They're a humbled bunch. You'd think they'd be a little more humble, though. It is kind of strange. They do kind of. They're pretty mouthy.
Oh, I was rooting against them. I mean, when the snap went over Roethlisberger's head, don't ask me why I found myself for the 2nd week in a row rooting for the Steelers. And I don't know if that's like because of Tomlin and I or like I hate the Steelers, but there's just something about seeing the Browns celebrate. Now, there is something to be said for this, right? We now go into this week where if we win, the entire city will be with your wife, wanting the Browns to win on Sunday because the game would be here.
Absolutely, right?
Now, wouldn't that be some snuff, right? We finally get an AFC championship game at home, and we can't go. And I said to my wife on Sunday, I'm like, you know, when we were losing 10-0, I think I said this. I was like, maybe this is the year the Browns win the Super Bowl because what the hell? Let them win. They can't have a parade. They can't have any fun. This should be the year the Browns win the Super Bowl because – it would be very, very Brownsy. That's all.
Yeah, it would be typical, you know, like good Cleveland, good fortune for them to get it this year. But yeah, I don't know. I would love to see it. You said we can't go. Like, could you imagine taking my 10-year-old kid to, you know, the Browns in the playoffs? That would be fantastic. And then talking trash the whole way out, the whole way to the harbor.
How did your kid adopt the Browns?
Well, he's got uncles and he's got aunts and they got a big pressure campaign. The grandmothers, you know, nobody takes it personally. Like my wife doesn't care which way the kids go and I don't care. But the grandmothers, my mom is a big Ravens fan. My mother-in-law is a big Browns fan. They were buying the onesies.
Heart. This isn't good for your mother.
Nah, she's fine. Look, we're the Ravens. We don't need fans. We're good. You know,
with your kid, it's almost like your kid being a Browns fan. You're like, all right, you know, but next week would be problematic, I would think, right?
Well, I got my daughter too. My daughter's 7, and I think she's going to be the Ravens fan. You know, so I'm working on her. She's 7. It takes Liam didn't
Who's
really.
in control in this family, Schuler?
Nobody, man. We're we're hippies. We just let it flow. Like if you want to be a Browns fan, be a Browns fan. I mean, I would be upset if he wasn't an Oriole fan. That to me is almost a little
See,
too
my
personal.
dad, I told this story to Blaine Bishop last week. I was an Oiler fan. My dad took me, and it was great seeing Joe Namath, out mowing the lawn on Sunday night before the game. First game my dad took me to, and I found my ticket stub in my program last week. I put a little picture of Charlie Ekman up as well. I ran during the holidays. Joe Namath, Marty Domrez was the Colts quarterback who I took a picture with one time. And on the way out that day, my dad was so pissed at the Colts because they had traded Johnny U to the Chargers, right? Johnny U was running around in the baby blue and the gold pants. And on the way out, I took a fancy to the Houston Oilers pennant because it was, baby blue and red.
Yeah,
and I was 5 years old. And I'm like, I want that. And my dad's like, nah, you don't want that. And I'm like, Dad. And my dad's like, they're the Houston Oilers. Have fun with it. Put it on your wall.
That's
and then we
I
got
feel.
bad enough to draft Campbell, and Pastorino was there. And then the next thing you know, he created sort of this monster out of me. The first time I ever smelled marijuana, and this is where we get to elections, all right?
How's
first
that
time
smell? I'm joking.
Pungent. The first time I smelled marijuana in my life, this is true, was in the outfield and left center field of Memorial Stadium on Monday Night Football, all right? It was the night before Jimmy Carter was elected, okay? The Houston Oilers played here. I was 8 years old, and if I could have had Oiler gear, I would have worn it that night. My dad probably would have gotten killed. It was the rowdiest, drunkest crap. I mean, it's a 1976 Monday night Baltimore Colts game, Schuler, right? I mean, you can imagine. So, my dad took me to see the Oilers when I was 8 in Baltimore under the lights, and I had it on video cassette, the copy of that, how it goes, Sal calling tomorrow the American election. So all of that was going on, and I was Oiler hooked. So, like, I can't poop on your boy. It's like when you say, well, my daughter will be the Ravens fan and my boy will be the Browns fan. I was an Oiler fan, and my dad lived with me until the day that the Colts left town. I was an Oiler fan, right?
Yeah, I'm 6.
I was a crazy
leave.
mixed up kid, dude. I don't know what to tell you.
Well, everybody had a team. Like I kind of rooted for the Cowboys. I guess they were good in the 90s, and I was at 10 or 12, and my brother rooted for the Packers for some crazy reason. Like,
but we didn't have a team.
When the Colts were gone and you were a kid, I mean, they left when I was 6. We didn't get them back. We didn't get the Ravens until I was in college.
You're so much younger than me, man. Like,
I know.
crazy.
I'm going to live forever too. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
I'm really unhealthy. It's I feel older, if that helps.
Go to Pizza John's. It'll make you feel better.
Yeah, a little grease. Fire me up.
Yeah, well, just having the kid that's the Browns, this week's going to be problematic. Look, I can't let you go because, I mean, our time's a little shorter this week because we're both running around. Just give me 5 or 10 on your observations. I followed you out on Facebook. When Wednesday happened, my life shut down because, like, I was not in the mood to talk about sports. I spent the whole day Thursday talking to Johnny O, Calvin Ball, Stuart Pittman, Adrian Jones. They're all up at Baltimore Positive. Don had booked them, to start the year, right? We're going to start the year, talk about the new administration and COVID. And then Wednesday happened, and, you can go listen to the aftermath, but I want to hear your thoughts.
Well, as with Baltimore Positive, in the spirit of Baltimore Positive, to take the positive away. And it was. And
you don't have to do that, by the way. That's very Pollyanna after the insurrection.
It's just
for a guy that's
right.
studied the Constitution. You should give me more than that, Todd. Don't be.
It's just the name. No, I think we probably we're in this vaccination mode, and I almost feel like we got our inoculation against fascism. I think that for those of us who my well-meaning Republican friends, and I do not want to cast aspersions and say that Republicans are fascists or anything crazy like that. But my good, well-meaning Republican friends who voted for Donald Trump, when I use the word dangerous, when I sounded like an alarmist, people would look at me like, you're overreaching, dude. There's
he's a good guy. He's a Christian. He pays his taxes. Like I
people
have no
saw it.
time for anybody who ever sold him to me as anything less than this. This is what he's always been. It's what everybody around him always perceived him to be.
Well, my wife rolls her eyes, right? She generally thinks that I'm goofy every time I think, freak out about, my Trump derangement syndrome, and like I'm having a conniption. We have, like, I think part of the enjoyment of Trump for a lot of people is watching people like me lose my mind every time he does something insane. But my wife was me on Wednesday night. Somebody who's not going to be in the political fray or engaged or all that worried about it. I mean, she votes and she contributes to candidates, but she's not losing her mind every time Trump does something. When she saw Wednesday, she was visibly shaken. She couldn't.
Everyone who voted for him should be visibly shaken.
Well,
That is
she
a
didn't.
blanket
I'm not going to
statement
say
that
she
I
voted
am
for
glad
him.
to say. No, everybody that voted for him, everyone who sanctioned this should be very, very aware that this was sanctioned by 80 million Americans.
No,
That
no, it
cop
wasn't.
getting his
No,
head beaten
no.
in, that all
It
of
was
this
not. It
happened.
wasn't.
It was
It
sanctioned.
was not sanctioned. They didn't vote for that. And they saw that
They
for the
voted for the
very
power in
first
him. They
time.
voted to vest power in him, thinking
They
he can't
not
be this dangerous. He
not
is.
super democratic power. They didn't vote for him to be king. They voted for him because they didn't like Hillary Clinton. They don't like Joe Biden. They don't like Democrats generally. But what they saw on Wednesday shook them. I had a buddy reach out from a lifelong Republican friend reached out from Missouri, and he just knows me as the guy who used to argue politics from the Democratic side from college. But he said, look, this is gross, and that Josh Hawley is a terrible look for the state of Missouri. Like people reached out. People saw for the
I have a
very
friend
first
of mine in
time.
Missouri that has pictures with him on the internet, and I'm thinking to myself, you gonna leave those up? I know you gave him money and stuff.
People will take them down. I mean, there will be a permanent stain on guys like Ted Cruz and guys like Josh Hawley that won't be there for Lindsey Graham. And I watched Lindsey Graham, the Kavanaugh thing. I thought he was horrible. I've watched him be a bootlicker, but like, if you take the off ramp, if God gives you an off ramp and you take it, like, I grew up Catholic, and one of the great Catholic things is your last rites, right? Like, they come in, they bring a priest in before you die, you repent from your sins. Like, if it's the end of the game, if it's the last of the Donald Trump presidency and you've been with him that entire time and you saw what you saw Wednesday and you want out, you're out and all is forgiven. I truly believe that. And I think a lot of people, look, they're not going to become Democrats overnight or at all. They're still going to be fiscally responsible and small government conservatives and things like that. But when it
I'm
comes
some of
to,
that, by the way. I
yeah,
have voted for that.
I can dig. It's not my cup
This
of
isn't a
tea.
time for that. This is a time for a New Deal and a Roosevelt. This is a time to put people to work in making our country better. That's what this is a time for in my eyes. But we're
But
not always in that.
the politics, the 74 million voters, they weren't all voting. They weren't voting for fascism. Some
They
were,
voted for the power in a fascist man who has said nothing but fascist things. To
but
anyone who has studied fascist principles,
there's an off
all the
ramp.
checklist boxes have been there.
There's an
All of
off
them.
ramp. There's a conservative movement that will
Fine, take the
survive
off ramp.
this.
We're going to take the off ramp because Joe Biden's going to be the effing president in 10 days.
No,
There is your
absolutely.
off ramp.
Yeah, and I'll be celebrating. I told you, my Johnny Walker Blue.
And if
Vaccine,
Donald Trump's a criminal, and we
Biden.
all know he is, he should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, like these creeps that were put up to this.
Again, silver lining, his star is fading. He could have left office and had a media empire and been the shadow president and the voice of the Republican Party. He squandered that opportunity when he called for an insurrection against the United States government. And
almost
you're
got
right.
it.
Legal.
And trapped his vice president in there and never called him. Just, on brand things for a guy who's morally bankrupt and has been and has proven himself to be at every turn.
No
in every facet of his life. Every facet of his life.
But I promise you that his star is fading. And like you say, he's going to have litigation, criminal and civil, from all kinds of different directions. He's basically, I think he's too lazy to, I don't think he wants any of this anyway. So I think he fades. And I think we see a Republican Party that I'm not, I didn't vote for Larry Hogan. I am a Democrat, like that just is what it is. But there are, um, there are good Republicans who disagree on policy, and that
But
policy
not enough
argument.
to vote for me, not enough to vote for this. This was sanctioned. This was supported. I had many of my friends running off to the parlor that they don't even spell right, that's now been taken, that is literally a crime scene, right? Like, you're a legal guy. I said, parlor is a crime scene. Literally. I mean, everyone I know who wanted to sanction this ran over there. And whatever the opposite of the McCarthy thing, I mean, they have all the names, right? I mean, everyone knows who was flying into D.C., all the credit cards, all the phones, everyone who was in the vicinity of the Capitol sending tweets online on any of these 4chans and these awful places. They're all. How about the guy crying at the airport? He couldn't get on a plane Sunday night.
You got to be careful though. If you don't breach the Capitol, I don't know that you've committed a crime, right? There was a legitimate rally, right? I mean, they were there to support their candidate, whether they've thought that it was the overthrow of the government or whatever. They're legitimate until they're not, But I can't imagine. Look, you talk about 4 years in Annapolis. If that would have happened, if you would have heard shots fired and people screaming outside, terrifying. And this
Well,
was
the Michigan
States.
thing, on the back end of the kidnapping plot for the Michigan governor, the fact that there were no federales in D.C. on Wednesday, it's an inside job, Todd. And I think that it speaks to being an inside job that got people
conspiracy
killed.
theories got us here. And it is up to all of us to dial it back. Even those of us, like I say, who have been alarmed and terrified and, calling out Trump from the very beginning. I'd watch the conspiracy theories. I mean, were they easier on those people because of their race? It would appear so, but
they walked out of the Capitol after going in
and they're
to
being
lynch the vice
arrested
president
all over the country right now. Right?
Yeah,
they're being arrested. We're going to get
How
through
about that?
this.
A guy calls you down in Essex and says, "I was there, man. Represent me."
I can't help with that one.
Yeah. I'm wondering how that's going to go as well. Todd Schuler's here. Tell everybody how you represent folks and what you do out there.
We're a personal injury law firm, and we have been for 40 years in one form or another right here on Eastern Avenue. We do workers' comp, we do car crashes, we do anything that you are involved in, construction accidents, motorcycle accidents, boat accidents. If you're injured, give us a call. You can find us on damngoodlawyer.com on the web, right here on Eastern Avenue, or 687-7878.
My dude, I appreciate your insights and your balancing of my anger, because I got a lot of it. You know what I mean? I probably need to hang out with you and have some crawfish sometime soon, or maybe some crab cakes. By the way, I had a victory crab cake from Faithy's after the game on Sunday, so I'm feeling myself right now,
Fantastic.
Festivus for the rest of us and democracy ahead. He is Todd Schuler, our friends at Blondell Miller Schuler, damngoodlawyer.com. He joins us every week. And his Ravens thoughts and sometimes Calvert Hall thoughts, and hopefully the next week, maybe Browns Ravens thoughts here in Baltimore can be found on the front of BaltimorePositive.com. You can find me, Nasty, at WNST.net, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat. Johnny O is on this week, Calvin Ball, Stuart Pittman. We have Brandon Scott's joining us later in the week. We have a bunch of things going on in addition to sports, but we're going to Buffalo, and we're going to talk about Baltimore Positive all week long.